Summerland disaster. Families fight for justice after holiday paradise inferno killed 50 people. The Summerland leisure complex was designed to hold 10,000 tourists coming to the seafront and included a bingo hall, 5 floors of amusement games and a dance hall, but there were mistakes in the design and glaring fire safety errors on the night of a deadly blaze. Image: campaigners continue to fight for justice over the Summerland fire in August 1973. When Heather Leah waved goodbye to her family 50 years ago as they boarded the ferry to the Isle of Man, she couldn't have known it would be the last time she would ever see them. Heather's parents, Elizabeth and Richard Cheatham, along with her little sister June, were going on holiday. It was an annual family ritual they all looked forward to, going on a trip to the island in the Irish Sea and staying at a seafront guest house in Douglas. Although Heather, 69, wasn't joining this time and instead, seeing off the family alongside her husband Reg, now 79, she knew one of the highlights of their trip would be somewhere they'd all visited before, the newly opened Summerland. A dazzling building designed to hold 10,000 tourists, the Summerland Leisure Complex was everything you'd want from a seaside holiday under one roof: dance halls, bars, restaurants, a bingo hall and 5 floors of amusement arcade games. It was made all the more impressive by a cavernous glass structure that covered the building, a dome that made it seem sunny all the time, no matter what the weather. On Thursday, August 2, 1973, the Cheatham family visited the complex. They never made it out alive. The family, alongside 47 other people, including 11 children, died after a fire engulfed the entire building in under an hour in one of the biggest fire disasters since the Second World War. We were watching TV and we'd seen there had been a big explosion, Heather recalls. The shock of seeing it on television like that, once the fire took hold, the building came down so quickly, everyone thought it was an explosion. A number appeared on the screen and we started dialing, but it took 12 hours for us to get through and they still couldn't tell us whether my family was alive or dead. The next week, the newly married Heather and Reg lived through what they describe as a horrendous nightmare. I had a sinking feeling I would never see them again, because if they could have got to a phone, they would have called. Eventually, they were told of the deaths of Elizabeth and 13-year-old June. Reg was asked to find the dental records of his father-in-law Richard as his body wasn't even recognizable. All 3 died of burns, according to the coroner's office. Image: June with her mother Elizabeth in 1972. Pic: Reg Leah. A witness at the time said my mother and sister had gone into the building to collect some bingo winnings, and when the fire started, my dad ran into the burning building to try and save them, says Heather. It's a horrible thing to happen to anybody. The main causes of death for the victims were suffocation, carbon monoxide poisoning, burns and multiple injuries from falling. A total of 102 people were injured, almost all were holidaymakers who had come for a break from the north of England. The fire was thought to have been started by a discarded cigarette. We coped because we were newly married, we had a new life, says Heather. Reg adds that the couple stuck to their daily routine and tried to carry on as best they could. But I remember about 2 months after it happened, I went to see my doctor to ask for help, and he said, "Is your marriage okay?" I had to say, "I'm not here for my marriage, can you help me with Summerland?" The couple, who now live in the Wirral, Merseyside, still find it painful to talk about the subject to this day, but it's the findings of an investigation into the inferno that stays with them. They said no villains were responsible. On May 24, 1974, a report was released cataloging a series of failures regarding the Summerland disaster, from the design of the building to the fire safety regulations. No individuals or groups were singled out to blame for what happened, and all the deaths were ruled as death by misadventure. The report said the accident was down to human errors, a reliance on the old boy network and poor communications. Dr. Ian Phillips of Birmingham University, who documented the disaster in a report, says the ruling was wrong. They said in it that there were no villains, and I believe the coroner was